G'day and welcome to Critical AFL on YouTube, everybody. Today is the first video in our three-part series on which West Coast Eagles to watch out for in 2025, starting with emerging Eagles in Part 1. Part 2 of the series will cover which established players returning from injury or compromise could impact the side in 2025, and Part 3 will be about new inclusions from both the draft and trade periods. Basically, it's a dive into which players will help the Eagles climb the ladder. But before we get into that, if you've been following our articles or just came across this video and enjoy it, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Our presence on this platform is very new, so your support by just clicking that button will go a long way towards establishing ourselves here and being able to make more videos just like this one. So let's get into it. Our headline player to be getting excited for in 2025 is Elijah Hewitt. Elijah Hewitt was drafted 2 years ago and has actually had a really injury-riddled and disrupted run at his AFL career in the time since. A lot of people might remember that in his first year, he missed large chunks due to injury, and even when he got back on the park, it cut short, most notably by a head-high hit from Jordan De Goey right after showcasing some of his best football and lighting up the first quarter against Collingwood that day. It was a really disappointing incident because West Coast fans really didn't have too much to cheer for during that period, and it came at a moment where one of their young stars was really just starting to step out and show them exactly what the future of the club was going to look like. West Coast's first to fourth year players all returned to the track on Monday the 11th of November, and even from early indications and small snippets provided, Elijah Hewitt's form looked red hot from the very start. His State Carnival teammate Ruben Joseph even went so far as to talk about Hewitt's form in interviews later that week, describing the intensity he'd turned up with as scary. So in summary, it's because Elijah Hewitt hasn't had a consistent crack at football in his first couple of years, but he's also shown how capable he is of impacting games when he is on the park, and because he's turned up to his pre-season looking completely over all of his long-term injuries, that makes him our number one West Coast Eagle to watch in 2025. Number 2 on the list is Rhys Bezo. Now, Rhett's missed quite a lot of football for a couple of reasons. In the last year, he's had consistent groin injuries that have kept him off the field. And the year before, he was underdone due to an absolute tragedy that happened in the pre-season, which really kept him from being able to get a good run-up at the side. So I think it's very easy for people to overlook where Rhys Bezo is going to fall when it comes to the AFL side. But at 195 centimetres, he made a huge impact in his first year. And there's also a lot of room for somebody like him to step into the back line where Tom Barrass has left. The likely candidate there is Harry Edwards. But Rhys Bezo has the chance to be able to move into that third tall role where he can cover a key forward, really earn his place in the side. And he did exit 50 really well from what we saw during the small amount of footy that he has played. So keep an eye out for Rhett next year. It's possible his build into a breakout year may start with quite a few games in the waffle early, but across the course of the season, we expect Rhys Bezo to be our number 2 emerging player to watch out for at West Coast. Our third emerging prospect to watch in 2025 is no other than Ruben Joseph. Ruben's already made a big impact in the AFL, but I think something that will probably contradict not having Harley Reed right up this list is that Ruben has a lot more to offer, and I think putting him in the back line where he's going to play next year, there will be a breakout season on top of a guy who's already proven that he belongs in the AFL side almost every week. One of the craziest things about Ruben is the amount of airtime his physical shape and condition gets every pre-season. In his first pre-season at the club, Nick Naitanui was immediately taken with Ruben's physical capability at 18. He spoke at length in interviews about it. Then you fast forward a year and Jinby's size was all everybody talked about last season, coming back with kilos of additional muscle while still winning all the time trials. And then we've again seen that same feedback that Ruben has turned up to the 24-25 pre-season looking like a completely different beast once again. I'm not sure how many times he'll be able to look bigger than he previously did, but for a guy of his established power to again come back more imposing than he left speaks a lot to what he'll be doing to the other AFL bodies he's up against in 2025. Harley Reed, on the other hand, just in case anyone's wondering why he's not at the top of the list, already was a big impact player in 2024. He definitely has room to improve and will improve next year. but this list is comparing the 2025 season against previous seasons. So for all the mad Reed fans out there, I'm sure there's only a handful of you, take it as a compliment to his incredible debut season that he's number 4 on this list. Unlike Jinby, he'll be playing the same role he was already in, and unlike Hewitt and Bezo, his games tally will be round about the same as last year too. So that said, he is on the list, which means we do expect Harley Reed version 2.0 to further emerge. So let's take a look at Harley Reed and where he's likely to impact the team more in 2025. The expected points of improvement are likely to be his decision-making and consistency. While there was no denying his impact on the side this year, Reed's time in the AFL showed up his decision-making on occasion. Some of it was just a simple case of figuring out the difference between AFL opponents compared to juniors, particularly with fend-offs, and some of it was about knowing when to give the ball off. And these are little teething issues that you'd expect from any first-year player that leaves room for him to become an even greater force in 2025. Part of Harley's improvement in consistency in 2025 is likely to come just by having a better side around him. Our 3-part series is about expected improvement across the list, which will help Harley with both the attention he receives on and off the field and should translate into his consistency. Between this and a full year already under the belt, Reed is very likely to poll Brownlow votes in a lot more games next year. Our 5th emerging player to impact in 2025 is Harry Edwards. With anybody else at 24 years old, this would be an outrageous call, but it's been a perfect storm that's kept Harry from having his big year before 2025. Playing third fiddle to Tom Barrass and Jeremy McGovern for years has kept him out of the limelight, while Edwards has quite cruelly managed to find himself either injured or unfit on most of the occasions where he was needed to fill in an extended absence from one of the 2 stars. That said, Edwards was part of a resoundingly successful program of players who visited Qatar last year to address repeat lower body injuries. So from here, we should expect a sharp uptick in both opportunity and readiness from Edwards. He's proven himself to be a bold interceptor at waffle level and an aggressive one-on-one defender in some of his games at AFL level. Combine that with a reputation amongst his teammates for a serious case of white line fever, and at 200 centimetres, Harry Edwards has every reason to make 2025 his breakout season. Other notable mentions include Clay Hall. I think Clay's got the frame and the ability, but it's probably looking like in 2025 there's going to be a bit of a squeeze and a bit of a struggle for him to really stamp himself on that AFL side. I think that the inclusion of Jack Graham, a senior body in the midfield where Clay Hall's due to be playing, as well as Elijah Hewitt returning, could push him into the waffle. But it's probably worth watching some of those games because he's got a big future long term. And the other one I'd mention would be Harry Barnett. He's probably another case like Clay Hall where he's likely to be pushed into the waffle. There's probably a bit of a contest between Matt Flynn and Bailey Williams at the moment for that primary ruck role. But I think it's very easy for people to forget that Harry Barnett's only entering his 3rd year in the AFL now. He was a top ruck prospect in his draft, and he's got probably the same time frame that you'd normally give every other ruck, except that it's a little bit more accentuated in a club with West Coast not having a ruckman really stand out while we're waiting for him to develop. So expect some progress from him. Potentially 2025 could be the year where people see what his potential is going to be, that he's got a long-term future in the AFL as well, and he'll probably crack a few games hopefully as well at that stage. That wraps up part 1 of our series on players to watch in 2025. Let us know your thoughts on the list and where you'd put guys like Campbell Chesser, Harvey Johnston, Jack Hutchinson, or someone else overlooked in that order. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for part 2 by subscribing to this channel on YouTube and supporting our move onto the platform.